What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Louie T, here with another installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Appreciate y'all for joining me. I told you I'd be back if we had something to discuss. Well, a couple of topics have hit the news wire, and so I'm back like cook crack. So, without any further ado, let's get to the proceedings this evening. You're locked into the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 494th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Hope this Thursday is treating you well. And or whenever you're listening to this podcast, you are in great spirits. So we talked about a topic yesterday. Actually, two topics. It's crazy how we talked about a couple of things yesterday, and then they came to fruition, or at least one of them did today. The other, we got a little bit more information on it, and it seems like it could maybe switch from the conversation that we were having yesterday. So we'll start today's show kind of picking up the conversation where we left off yesterday, talking about rule changes, specifically the tush push. So let's go ahead and transition over to the gym drop-in session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So I talked about the tush push yesterday, and I said that I didn't think it was going to get banned. 16 votes is not nearly enough. It's half the league. You need 3/4 of the league, okay, to have anything pushed through and changed and altered. You would need 8 more owners to decide that the tush push isn't good for the league and vote against it. And I just don't see that happening in 2 months' time when they reconvene in May to discuss all of the matters that were tabled from March and anything else that needs to be brought up. So I was listening to my guy, Ari Meroff, and I had him on this program for the summer series last year, if you remember. And I think he does a fantastic job covering the National Football League. I've said this numerous times. He's one of the most locked in guys, not named Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or Peter Schrager or any of these guys that have ties to the NFL, who talk to people, James Palmer, whomever, that are NFL insiders. He's an insider as well, but I don't want to say, like, I don't want to treat it as if the others aren't self-made, but he's self-made, right? So his information, I take it to the bank like it's Adam Schefter or it's Ian Rappaport, right? So I was listening to Ari the other day, and he added some insight to the tush push conversation that we were having yesterday. And something that he said struck a chord with me. And he basically said that Roger Goodell wants the tush push gone. That changes everything with the tush push, because generally what Raj wants, Raj gets. And so if he like, we're getting 18 games, okay? That's a formality. It's not a matter of if there's going to be an 18 game schedule. We talked about this when Roger floated this last year. And I said, it's only a matter of time. 17 is just a placeholder to get to 18. They're getting to 18, right? So Raj came out after the league meetings, and he talked about the tush push and how he doesn't think it's good for the NFL. I want you to take a listen to Ari explain why he thinks that this thing could eventually get banned in May when the owners link back up for the May league meetings in Minneapolis. Take a listen to Ari Meroff as he talks about why he thinks the tush push isn't out of the woods quite yet.
You try to, reach out to people and be like, hey, what'd you think about this? What'd you think about that? And of course, the biggest discussion was the tush push. And when you reach out to people, and I kind of mentioned it yesterday because that was the feeling that I had, but Roger Goodell having his end of owner meetings press conference, which he does every single year when it's over. And Roger, we've learned over the year, he is very selective with his words. If he doesn't want to say anything, he's going to create a word salad of nothing. If he wants to create a message out there and put it in the ether, he knows how to do it. A couple of years ago, he put it out there about the 18-game schedule. Look how we're talking a lot about it. So Roger Goodell going out there and saying that this is a play that he believes should be taken out. It's something that we don't have any data on it right now with injuries, but it could cause catastrophic injury. It's something that we should look back to the way the rule used to be back in 2004, where you cannot shove somebody from behind. Him openly saying that is basically an acknowledgement that he wants this out of the league, and that is why it was tabled over here at the owners' meetings. They did not have the votes. They had 16 yeses and 16 noes over here. So that means they were 8 short. They could have essentially said, you know what, we're not going to get it this year, move on, maybe we'll look at it after another year. Them deciding we're going to table this has people thinking that they're going to either adjust the wording of the Packers proposal, which, by the way, for what it's worth, I'm going to sidetrack for a second. I know the Packers were the ones to propose this. I've also heard, though, that it wasn't the Packers who were like, we're going to do this and propose this. The Packers, their president, Mark Murphy, he wrote it in a column on the website that he does not like the tush push. There's people who believe Roger actually was the one who reached out to Mark and said, you've already taken the lead on this. Why don't you be the one who proposes this, and I'll be on your side? If that's the case, then Roger wants it out of the game. Then that is the big deal. And Roger knows how to twist some arms over here. So he needs 8 owners to flip their vote whenever they meet again in May. We have seen him flip votes in the past. A couple of years ago when there was the idea of introducing Thursday night flexing, they were short on the votes in the March meetings. They tabled it to the May meetings. He got 2 or 3 more votes to flip and got it done in May. If Roger wants something, he'll be able to figure it out. The wording that the Packers proposed in that entire thing, there were some loopholes there. There were a lot of questions about it. They're going to have to patch some things up over here, but I think they're going to bring it back to the table over here in the May meetings with different verbiage and wording over there to make it a little bit more clear on what is not allowed and the loopholes to be fixed about. If you look at the reading, it basically says you cannot push somebody immediately. There was some talk in the room. What does immediately mean? Does that mean if the quarterback starts the sneak, then 4 seconds later somebody pushes him? Is that okay? There was talk about only you could push from the center. That means if you line up behind the guard, that means you could push him. There were a lot of loopholes throughout that entire proposal that needs to be patched up. But I think they're going to patch this up, and I think they're going to have a lot of owner discussion and Roger Goodell discussions with owners in this next month and a half before the next owner meeting in Minneapolis. And frankly, it would not surprise me if that does end up happening. It's not going to be easy. Flipping 8 votes is hard, but I think they're going to try very hard to get this out of the game. And if Roger wants it out of the game, I think it does get out of the game.
So that was Ari Meroff talking about Roger Goodell and him having an axe to grind with the tush push. And I just remember every time Roger Goodell wanted something, he wanted Tom Brady on, essentially on a stick, right? His head on a stick after, Deflategate. He got it, right? When Roger Goodell wanted Daniel Snyder to sell, because he talked about this after the league meetings 4 years ago, I believe it was, when he said Washington needs new ownership. He said that is a massive market for the NFL. It is a proud franchise that needs to be restored, and the NFL is better when Washington is in good health. And a year later, not even Daniel Snyder is selling the team. When Roger Goodell speaks, shit happens. And so there's no doubt in my mind that if Roger Goodell wants the tush push banned, he's going to fight to get this done. And he's going to really lobby extremely hard. He's going to, as you heard Ari talk about, he's going to tinker with the wording that the Packers put forth to clean up some of the things that may be concerns for some of the owners. But they're going to put this thing in motion. And I wouldn't be shocked, even if it doesn't get banned this year. I wouldn't be shocked if the count, when they bring this back to the voting table, isn't a lot closer than what it is right now. Right now, it's not even close to getting banned. Half of the league isn't anywhere near close. You're not in the neighborhood unless you're somewhere in the 20s. You got to be at least at 20 for someone to feel like, okay, there's a chance that this could actually happen. At 16, you need a quarter of the league's owners to change their minds. You're talking about stubborn, old, white men. Generally, that's not how they operate. When their mind is made up on something, it's hard to change their minds. So we'll see if Roger Goodell can get 8 owners to flip their decision and decide that the tush push isn't good for business in the National Football League. I just know when Roger wants something, Roger usually gets what he wants. So that changes a lot about how I feel about the tush push getting banned, because before I was like, it's not happening, right? Now I'm like, oh, okay, Raj doesn't want it. And that's the guy that you probably need to have in your corner if you want something done in the NFL is Roger Goodell. And now that he himself has said that it's not a football play, right? It's not an act common to the game and it should be taken out. And, I've already said this. I don't think the injury thing is legitimate right now. You can't substantiate that with any actual data, which Roger Goodell said. And they had David Sills, who is the NFL's, leading physician. Like anytime you hear somebody talking about concussions and something safety, health-wise, protocol, it's usually David Sills. So he spoke during the league meetings this week about the tush push and how it is not a safe play. Again, the data does not necessarily back that up, but I can't imagine a play where guys are that close to each other and leading with their heads and et cetera, et cetera. It could be a safe play, but we haven't seen any injuries from it. Doesn't mean that one won't happen, right? But we haven't seen anything that suggests that it's an unsafe play. But you be the judge, all right? I mean, yeah, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I mean, how is that play any safer than a quarterback sneak? So, like, I mean, that part, you can't sell me on this play is that much more harmful than a quarterback sneak. It's the same play, except now you've got somebody aiding and abetting the quarterback or whomever takes the snap to get the first down. That's the part to me that is a little bit questionable, is you're allowing other guys to aid, like with the quarterback sneak. Because if you ask, well, what's the difference? You don't have, 300-400 pounds of mass behind that guy pushing him forward. Like, that's hard to stop, right? Versus a guy having to get the first down on its own. That changes everything, right? So I still have my doubts, but if yesterday I felt like the tush push getting banned was at a 10% clip, after the developments of today, or yesterday rather, with Roger Goodell speaking and now learning how he feels, I think I've upped my percentage to 40 now, 40%. Like, this is a realistic thing. Still don't think it's likely. If it were, it'd be higher than 50%, but it's close. A lot closer than this conversation we were having just 12 hours ago. A lot closer than what we thought just 12 hours ago, at least what I thought 12 hours ago. That said, let's talk about a trade that took place today as we transition from gym dropping session to social media maneuvers. You know what it is. I'm a midday Marauder. So the Cowboys, so this is another conversation we had yesterday, right? And it's funny that it came to fruition that quickly. Shout out to my guy, Sean Hawk. Ha! 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 Sean Hawk yesterday said, hey, book it. I got the Cowboys trading for, or taking a quarterback early in the draft. And I said, I don't think they're going to take a quarterback early in the draft, but it wouldn't have shocked me if they would have taken a quarterback. Cooper Rush left in free agency, went to Baltimore. And the Cowboys need another young quarterback on the roster, right? I don't know if they feel like Will Grier is now their quote unquote veteran backup. If anything happens to Dak Prescott, they're screwed anyway. But at least with Cooper Rush, he could somewhat keep your season afloat and give you a shot. You don't have a chance in hell if Will Grier's coming in the game. But whatever, that's not my problem. But we saw them do this before, right? So let's talk about what the Cowboys did. And they've actually been pretty active this offseason via the trade market. And you go all the way back to the trade deadline and them trading for the wide receiver from Carolina, bringing him on board. I think they paid a bit of a hefty price there. I think most people think they overpaid there, but that's nor here nor there. They traded for the cornerback from Buffalo, who was a former first-round pick out of Florida this offseason. And now they're trading for quarterback Joe Milton of the formerly of the New England Patriots. So let's talk about this trade from both sides. We'll start with New England quickly. As you can see what the compensation is, Joe Milton and a 7th-round pick go to Dallas in exchange for a 5th-round selection. All right. So the Patriots are receiving a 5th-round selection. They are parting ways with Joe Milton and a 7th-rounder. So this is a win for New England, if you ask me, because you spent a 7th-round pick on Joe Milton, the third last season or last draft, and you were able to flip him for essentially a 5th-round pick, right? If you want to, get technical, a 7th plus Joe Milton probably equals a 6th. But whatever, you got a 5th out of the deal. So essentially, you were able to take a 7th-round pick and flip it, 2 7th-round picks and flip it for a 5th. That you can't usually do that, right? You can't trade someone 2 7th-round picks and get a 5th. That's not how that works. The numbers don't. The math ain't math in there. So this is a win for the Patriots on paper, okay? And I don't think there's a team in the league that does a better job of drafting quarterbacks over the years, and this was a staple of the Patriot way when Brady was there with Belichick and company, is they would draft a quarterback 3rd, 4th, 5th round, right? Whether it was Ryan Mallett or it was Jimmy Garoppolo or it was Matt Castle, they would draft a quarterback. They would develop that quarterback. He would rarely play, obviously, because of Tom Brady, but when he did play, he would showcase well, whether it was the year Tom Brady tore his ACL and Matt Castle took them to 10, 11 wins. They still missed the playoffs, but it was impressive, and that got him in Kansas City and got them a trade and netted them, some high draft capital. And Ryan Mallett, they were able to showcase him in the preseason and in limited duty, and boom, they're able to trade him to Houston when Bill O'Brien first went and left New England and went to Houston. They did the same thing, obviously, with Jimmy Garoppolo when Brady was suspended for Deflategate. Jimmy Garoppolo got in there and went undefeated, and that prompted this 49ers to come calling, and they traded Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, for a 2nd-round pick. So they've always done a tremendous job of drafting quarterbacks, developing them, showcasing them just enough, and then moving on from them and getting some draft capital and getting more for that player than what they spent to acquire that player. So they've maximized Joe Milton's value in their estimation. And also, this is what this trade reflected for me, because I saw this coming a mile away. Now, not necessarily to Dallas, but we talked about this. I know I talked about this over on Bleacher Report. I talked about it on this podcast not too long thereafter. When they signed Joshua Dobbs in free agency, it screamed to me, Joe Milton is available. Somebody come and take him off of our hands. And the minute he went out and played the way that he played in that final game of the season, they had to move Joe Milton. This was not optional. They had to move Joe Milton, because there was always going to be some numbnut fan out there saying, Joe Milton's the real franchise quarterback here. You need, and again, what you don't want with Drake May is him looking over his shoulder, right? You don't need that. You don't need a young quarterback looking over his shoulder and peeking to make sure that his job is safe, right? If he's going to fail, let him fail on his own volition. Don't have him failing because he's afraid to make a mistake, or he thinks that he could get benched, or he's hearing the crowd. We saw this happen in New England with Mac Jones. We just saw this with Mac Jones, literally. All right. It was Zappy hour. Remember that bullshit, right? Mac Jones took them to the playoffs as a rookie. The second year wasn't as great, but he had some injuries. Zappy came in, played well, and all of a sudden it was Zappy hour, and he's getting booed on a Monday night game. And I'm like, what the hell is this bullshit? I can't get jiggy with this shit. But that's what you don't want, right? You do not want to subject your young quarterback to that. All right. And so this was a necessary evil for New England. You had to do this. And so you put that feeler out there that Joe Milton was available, and somebody was going to come calling. I told you I had a buddy that was a Raiders fan that was all over Joe Milton and wanted them to trade for Joe Milton before, obviously, they traded for Geno Smith. Pause. So I knew somebody was going to come and get Joe Milton up off the Patriots. Did I expect it to be the Dallas Cowboys? No. But Jerry Jones did tell us, because, he can't help himself. His gums are always flapping. He did tell us that the Cowboys were in the process of acquiring a quarterback. Now, he said this probably a week or two ago. But Jerry says a lot of things, but he wasn't lying. And clearly, this is the quarterback that he was talking about. And so Joe Milton, who was super impressive in the preseason and even more impressive in that Week 18 game against Buffalo. As you can see, some of his numbers here is 22 of 29, 241 yards, and a touchdown last year in that Week 18 game that the Bills absolutely did not need. Josh Allen kept his active starting game streak alive by taking the first snap of the game and then not playing the remainder of the game. So the Bills did not need that game. They were already locked into the 2 seed. They could not advance any further in the standings, and thus they had no reason to play any of their starters. New England took advantage of it, and Joe Milton did as well. And now he's going to get an opportunity in Dallas. What does that mean? All it means, all right, and so the crowd out there that thinks he's being brought in to take Dak Prescott's job, pipe down, relax, okay? Now, ultimately, that may happen, right? I'm not telling you that this isn't foreshadowing, but he's the new Trey Lance. That's all this is having a young quarterback with some talent and tools. I've said this before. Tools and or talent get you to the league. The ability to adjust and adapt and production keep you in the league. Okay. Joe Milton has shown us that he's toolsy and talented. Okay. That's what got him here. But he hasn't yet to show at any level that we've seen him, whether it was at Michigan or his brief stint at Tennessee, he has yet to show the ability to fully adapt and adjust and then create consistent production. He will not get that opportunity in Dallas if Dak Prescott is healthy. This is still Dak Prescott's team. Nothing has changed. They just paid him a shit ton of money, okay? A shit ton of money. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, is Dak Prescott. I heard the rumors. They were stupid rumors that had no validity nor legs to them about him being traded to Cleveland. So I never even put any stock into that. It wasn't even a conversation worth having, right? I didn't even waste my breath on that. But Joe Milton is being brought in the same capacity that Jalen Hurts was brought in Philadelphia to back up Carson Wentz. Why? Because Wentz was oft injured. And there were seasons where the Eagles were really good and Wentz did not finish. He did not make it to the finish line. Luckily enough for them, the first time it happened, they had Nicholas Foles, and he was able to pick up where Wentz left off, take them to the Super Bowl, and win the first Super Bowl championship for the Philadelphia Eagles. The second time it happened to be Josh McCown. The results weren't the same, right? So they said, you know what? We need to be more prepared in the event that, not that when Carson goes down, because that seems to be a theme of his, right? And that's why they went out and got Jalen Hurts. He was supposed to be an insurance policy. He turned out to end up being their future franchise quarterback. Same thing you could say about Brock Purdy. He was brought in simply to just be an insurance policy, right? And he was never supposed to be the starter in San Francisco. That's why they traded up to draft Trey Lance. He was only, and Shanahan had experience with this. Remember, they doubled up in 2012. He was there with his dad in Washington when they doubled up with Robert Griffin III in the first and Kirk Cousins in the fourth. So he had seen it happen firsthand where, hey, it pays to double up. But they took Mr. Irrelevant, the guy with the final pick in the 7th round of that 2022 draft, and it worked out for them that Trey Lance ultimately wasn't the guy, couldn't stay healthy, and that he could be the guy for them, right? So that's what Dallas is doing here. This is the second time Dak Prescott has had a significant injury that's ended his season prematurely. The first time it happened, it was when he broke his ankle, and that season went to hell in a handbasket in 2020, right? This is the second time that it's happened now, with the injury to his hamstring, where he tears his hamstring, and Cooper Rush had to finish out the season. So he's had a shoulder injury that cost him some games. He's had a hamstring tear that's cost him half of the season roughly, and then he had a broken ankle that cost him 2/3 of a season. So this is a concern of Dallas, is his health, and just needing to make sure there's a young guy in the wings waiting just in case Dak Prescott isn't necessarily long for the future in Dallas. You'd want to have a guy that gives you an opportunity to say, hey, we don't have to go looking and searching for a quarterback. They thought they had that in Trey Lance. They found out very quickly he was not the answer. Now they're trying their luck with Joe Milton. We'll see if he, provides them with a better backup option to Dak Prescott. But it's an intriguing move. Again, Joe Milton is extremely toolsy. You won't find many more talented quarterbacks in the NFL from a height, weight, speed, arm strength perspective, right? 6'5", massive arm, good athleticism. He can spin it. It's the accuracy, it's the decision making. Those are the things that have plagued him throughout his career. If he can put it together, Dallas might have gotten a diamond in the rough. We'll see what happens, but this is still Dak Prescott's team. Make no mistake about it. But he's going to now fill the Trey Lance role. We'll see what happens. If Dak goes down, instead of them going to Cooper Rush, they'll probably go to Joe Milton and see what he can do, right? So, sticking with news of the day, Geno Smith. This was something that I expected to happen. I told you my buddy's a Raiders fan, and I asked him, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I said, did y'all extend Geno yet? I might have missed, sometimes shit happens. I miss it. I'm like, did y'all extend him yet? He's like, nope. I was like, y'all extending him, right? He's like, yeah, I know. So I'm like, because again, I always tell you guys this. If a player ultimately gets traded from one destination to the other, 9 times out of 10, it's about money. So if you trade for a guy, he's not going to now all of a sudden forget that he wanted to get paid or say, you know what? Don't worry about the money. I just want it out. Nah. You know, that one instance, I said 9 times out of 10, that one instance was last year with Matthew Judon, right? Who wanted to get paid in New England and got to the point where he's like, look, just get me out of here. He goes to Atlanta and he tells the Falcons, hey, don't worry about paying me. I'll prove it to y'all that I deserve to get this money. And then he did nothing for them. And he's still looking for a job right now as we speak. He'll get some work as we get closer to training camp. Somebody will pick him up that doesn't get an edge rusher in the draft. But right now, he's got to wait because he didn't do shit last year, right? That's why most times when guys want to get paid and they balk and the team balks back at them and says, you know what? You want to get paid? Do it somewhere else. You got to go get your money somewhere else. And when you get there, you make sure you get your money. We saw this last year with Hassan Reddick, right? Wanted to get paid by the Eagles. Eagles like, yo, bro, we hear you. And look, you're more than deserving, but we just can't do it. We got shit to do with our money. So tell you what, you find a trade partner, we'll let you move on. You can get your money from somebody else and everybody's happy. You will get some compensation. You'll get your bread. Everybody's happy. They got their compensation. Hassan Reddick just never got his money. And so he sat out for half the season. And that didn't go well, right? So Geno wanted to get paid in Seattle. That's why they traded him. And what we later found out was Geno wanted over $40 million a year. And the Seahawks were like, come on, Geno, bro. 40 for you? And Geno was like, wait, I don't feel like you're respecting me right now. I feel like you're insulting me. What do you mean 40 for you? And he was like, I mean, Geno, come on now. Like, you're good and all, but $40 million a year for you, Geno? Like, come on, bro. And Geno's like, yeah, $40 million a year, bro. What do you mean for you? What are you trying to say? Are you saying I'm not worth $40 million a year? He was like, yeah, that's pretty much what I was trying to get at. Yeah, like, we're cool with giving you $38 million a year. And Geno's like, all right, bro, just trade me. They was like, bet. Like, okay, cool. And so they traded him to the Raiders, and you knew an extension was coming at some point. And so here it is. 2 years, $85.5 million max value extension. 66.5 of it is fully guaranteed for Geno Smith. Great payday for a guy who bought his time in this league. I couldn't be happier for Geno. He used to be the butt of my jokes. Geno. Oh, Geno. Oh, no. Like, that used to be my thing when I talked about Geno Smith. Remember, we used to talk about him getting punched in the face by a former teammate, I.K. Impanali. Remember that? When he got punched in the face and his jaw got broken for talking shit in the locker room? He used to be the butt of my jokes, and now Geno has come. He's done a complete 180, right? I was going to say full circle, but no, he didn't come full circle because he'd be back where he started. He's done a full 180, and now he's a veteran that is respected in the league. He plays at a high level, and you can win football games. I wish Devontae Adams was still in Vegas. This got done 1 year too late, is what happened ultimately. If we're being honest, they don't have enough talent around Geno Smith in Vegas. We're going to see what their new GM, John Spytek, is able to assemble around him, but they don't have enough talent around Geno right now. But you draft Genty and you draft you a really good receiver to go along with what you already have. You got a beast tight end. Shit could change real quick. You got one of the best tight ends in football. You could have one of the better running backs in football if you get Genty, and then you get you a wide receiver in the second round. That's pretty good, and all of a sudden, you might have something. I like Jacoby Myers a lot. The little speedster receiver they drafted last year out of Cincinnati, I like him too. I think they got some stuff. They just need to make it all come together. You need a receiver and you need a running back for that. They do that. Raiders could be a problem because Geno can play football. So good for Geno and good for the Raiders. Um, and then while we're on the subject matter, um, we have another extension that got done here. And I love this player a lot. And I remember a lot of Commanders fans wanted this guy very, very badly. Let me see. All right. Trey McBride, the tight end for the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of Commanders fans wanted Trey McBride when he was coming out of Colorado State. I remember that very vividly. I remember Commanders fans talking me to death about Trey McBride. And I was like, yeah, all right, man. He ain't all that, right? And Trey McBride is all that. I remember the game last year that I just went, whoa. And I'd been watching his development and growth over the life of his career, but it was the Rams game last year on I want to say it was a Saturday night, I believe it was, late in the season. They had no answers for Trey McBride. But then again, not a lot of teams did this season. I mean, this guy was outstanding this year. So he is getting a 4-year, $76 million extension. Good for him, man. He's, again, one of the better young tight ends in the league. And so we're seeing a lot of young tight ends flourish in the NFL. And this is supposed to be a really good draft of young tight ends coming into the league this year. We'll see if they hold up their end of the bargain and add to the talent pool at the tight end position in the National Football League. So, let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. If you're out there and you have a comment that you would like to have read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. Again, I cannot ensure that your comment will be read and reacted to, but it gives you a shot. If you want to ensure that your comment is read and reacted to live on the air, and you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to get that done. So with that said, let's get to the comment section, see what we got. JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for kicking us off. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, maybe I'm alone. And usually when people say that, they're not alone. He says, maybe I'm alone on this, but I don't want 18 games. Players get hurt enough during the regular season. I think it could ruin the quality of the playoffs. I have been on record as saying I never wanted more than 16 games. I thought 16 was more than enough. I did not think there was a need for more football as a staunch supporter of more football and someone that can't get enough of this product. I told you I inject this in my veins for probably 11 months out of the year. Even when they're not playing football, we're still talking about the National Football League. So this has become damn near a year-round product. And I am one of those people that can't get enough of this shit. It could be Cleveland and Jacksonville. I'm going to watch. It could be Tennessee and Vegas. I am going to watch because I'm a junkie. That said, I too feel like when is enough enough? We don't need more regular season product. 16 was more than enough, but again, it's a money grab. You know, they talk about player safety. They don't give a damn about player safety. Okay. They give a damn about it enough to a point where they don't want the guys that are making them this money hand over fist to get injured, but they're willing to put them at risk by adding more games to the schedule because it makes them more money, right? So they want to protect them to a degree, right? Like the whole campaign after concussion came out and they were kind of trying to save face and do damage control was, hey, we got to find ways to limit concussions. So what did they do? They wanted the kickoff to pretty much be limited, right? Because that's where most concussions took place, right? Now, all of a sudden, after the dust is settled, the smoke is cleared, and it's all safe to go back out now. No one's talking about concussions, and we're actively doing things. We've changed the helmets, and we've got guardian caps, and we've got defenseless head and neck, penalties, and all of this stuff that we've taken measures to limit concussions. It's safe to go back out now. And yeah, I don't give a damn about the distance between the guys running it. It's still a play. I watched my all-pro kick returner get knocked out cold on a kickoff return last year. Don't talk to me about it's a safer play, okay? Shit's gonna happen when a guy's running that fast, and that's the play where shit happens the most. So if you really don't want more collisions, and I know I'm off topic. You didn't ask me anything about kickoffs, but you are talking about players getting hurt, and don't move the touchback up to the 35 if you claim player safety is paramount, okay, so that you can get more kickoffs. More kickoffs equal more injuries, and even though the number went down, it's still a play that's going to result in guys getting injured, and probably the most injured you're going to see them get from a long-term health standpoint when we're talking concussions. So anyway, I digress. Let me get off of my soapbox and just tell you that I agree with you. I don't need extra games. I don't need an extra regular season game. 17 is too many. 16 was more than enough to figure out if a team was ready for the postseason or not. Like, I don't need 18 games now. And, again, old man, get off my lawn. I know. But now you're rendering some of these records not irrelevant, but like there was a time where rushing for 1,000 yards meant something. If you can't rush for 1,000 yards in a 17-game season, what are we talking about? Rushing for 1,000 yards meant something when there were 14 games. They went to 16, and we still propped up 1,000-yard season as something to behold. But it was really like 63 yards per game that you needed to rush for 1,000. That's nothing. Now there's 17 games. Like now the new number should be 1,200 is the new 1,000 at this point, right? And rushing for 2,000 yards, Saquon Barkley did it in 16 games last year. He would have broken the record had he, participated. So I respect what Saquon did last year because he did it in 16 games. He didn't need the 17th game to break the record or to rush for 2,000 yards. If he wanted to break the record, if he'd have played in the 17th game, he would have done it. I would have felt some type of way about it because he would have needed the extra game to break it, but he still rushed for 2,000 yards in 16 games. I respect that. But eventually, somebody's going to break Eric Dickerson's record because we keep pushing out how many games we're playing. Eventually, some receiver is going to have a 2,000-yard receiving season. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. It's going to be a great accomplishment, but it's not going to be the same way I felt when Calvin Johnson almost had 2,000 yards in a 16-game season. Some of these numbers aren't going to mean the same. And then we're going to look at some of these accomplishments. 5,000-yard passing season. That ain't going to be shit here soon when you're playing 18 games, right? Then some of these numbers, then we're going to start pushing guys out of the Hall of Fame. And when we compare eras, it's hard to compare eras where, hey, this guy played in 14 games and this guy played in 16 games. And now we're going to be playing in 18 games. So the numbers, it's just going to become cartoonish to me. I don't need more games, but they don't care anything about that. They care about money. And I get it. If I were in their position, I'd probably be pushing for 18 games too, right? Lining my pockets with more money. That's what it's all about. But as a consumer, at the end of the day, I'm going to watch. I'm not complaining that, 18 games is bad for business because could it water down the product? It could, but I'm pretty sure people were saying the same thing about 17. I don't think any of us feel any different about 16 versus 17. I just don't need more. I just didn't need more. That's all. I just didn't need more. That's it. But the season's long enough as is, even though as a fan, I enjoy it. It's long enough as is. And with this 18th game, right? Are you adding in a bye week? What are we doing? That's going to extend the season even longer. Like soon, they'll be playing games all the way through February. At this rate, like what are we trying to accomplish? The NFL calendar is already long as hell as is. You're already squeezing in the Reese's Senior Bowl and the East West Shrine game. Like you're already squeezing that shit in during like the one off week through the, with the Super Bowl. And so what are you doing? Like the combine used to be in February. Now the combine's in March. Like how much further are you going to push stuff back? I don't know. They don't seem to care about any of that though. The draft will ultimately be in May if you do this. It has to be. There's no other way. It has to go back to May. So, anyway, I digress. I don't think it'll ruin the quality of the playoffs or anything like that. We don't need more football. I'm pretty sure the players like, bro, we don't need another game. It's already enough. I agree, but I said all of that to say this. I most certainly will be watching when they add the 18th game, and so will you. So, anyway, JP, my guy, John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, saw a report in The Athletic that the Browns may not draft quarterback at 2 and could tank for Arch Manning. Browns aren't a serious franchise if that's true. It's line season, JP, right? Like that. I saw your tweet, and it's just an article that's being written during a time where people are, trying to get clicks, and they got you, obviously. But JP, understand that no NFL, this is not the NBA. You can tank in the NBA. And the thing about it in the NBA is it don't guarantee you shit. Being the worst team in the league does not ensure that you'll get the number 1 pick in the NBA, which is crazy part, right? You could be awful. You could win 7 games and still end up with the 3rd pick in the draft in the NBA. And a team that won 21 games can end up with the number 1 pick. It's the lottery, right? Well, in the NFL, it actually would behoove you to suck if you needed a quarterback, right? But this is a business, unlike baseball or basketball, where your contracts are fully guaranteed. I don't really give a shit what you do, right? This is the NFL. These are not fully guaranteed contracts. Coaches don't get to, see the process through. General managers don't get to see the process through. You don't have time to tank an entire season. No one does that in the NFL. If you suck, you just suck because you're not very good. And the best way to suck is to not have a quarterback. So if they don't take a quarterback here, is that their way of putting themselves in a position to be in a better position to draft one next year? Possibly. But they did trade for Kenny Pickett. I crack myself up. I still think there's a chance they might try to go after Kirk Cousins. There's a realistic possibility that he would be a perfect fit for Kevin Stefanski. So I still think there's a chance that even if they don't draft a quarterback at 2, that they could still get themselves a quarterback via trade during the draft in Kirk Cousins, and all would be forgiven at that point. I don't see the Browns trying to tank. That's not a real thing that exists in the NFL. Teams don't try and tank because you can't get 53 guys. It's easier to get 15 guys on a basketball roster, and you can start benching guys that can help you win games and start playing young players. It's easier to do that when it's 15 guys. I've heard stories about veterans being told, hey, you only playing 15 minutes. I've seen them send home veterans, right? I watched the Oklahoma City Thunder send home Al Horford and tell him, you can't help us because you're too good. I've seen teams do that in the NBA. So I know it exists. That doesn't happen in the NFL. These guys are trying to win every single game. even when they suck. They could be on an 8-game losing streak, but if they win the 9th game, it's going to make them feel so much better about coming to work on Monday. So, to me, tanking does not exist at the NFL level. Impossible. Impossible. Anyway, I digress. All right, let's get to the comment section. I'll take a couple comments and then we'll get to our final segment and get out of here. All right. Let's see. Anything for me? William Minette says, favorite Val Kilmer role? I don't know if I have one. I wasn't a massive Val Kilmer fan. I knew of his work. I know a lot of people loved him in Tombstone. I never seen the movie, so I can't talk about that. I did see him in the Doors movie when he was playing Morrison. It was okay. It didn't move me. I think it would probably have to be one of the Batmans. It'd have to be Batman, probably. Would be mine. Because that's the ones that I can remember him in vividly. So probably have to be Batman. But I wonder what he passed away from. Because he was young. I think he was 65. Like that's not old at all. I wonder if he was sick or anything like that. Mike Jink, writes, what's the point of a vote if Goodell gets the last decision anyway? Well, he doesn't get the last decision. Like, he has full autonomy over like suspensions and discipline and things of that nature. Like, they've brought in other forms of almost like branches of the league office to kind of checks and balances to have checks and balances in place after the Brady situation, because it felt like a witch hunt. So now they have like an actual now he still gets the last say there though, but there's actually an independent arbitrator that hears like suspensions. Like if they appeal, it used to be if you appealed, you were appealing to the guy that suspended you. You weren't going to win. Now there's an independent arbitrator, which is why we've seen more players appeal their suspension, not necessarily have it lifted, but have it reduced game-wise. We've seen more of that over the last 3-4 years than ever before because they have an independent arbitrator now. Whereas before, he would punish you. You'd like, man, I'm appealing. He was like, okay, bet. Put the appeal on my desk and I'll look over it. He was still going to uphold the shit. In this particular case, this is why they do a voting system, because Goodell doesn't have the final say. What he can do, though, is use his influence to try. It's no different than, politics. And you've got people who have agendas that they want pushed, and they got a bunch of money, and they're able to sway people to do things, or they're able to get people in office that benefit their agenda, right? Like, it's no different than that. All right. Roger Goodell is in a position where he can sway the votes a certain way. He has that type of power, but he can't just say, we're going to do this. 24 owners have to agree in order for it to happen. So that's the point, is right now, there's not enough votes for the tush push to be banned. Roger Goodell has enough power to try to sway them to get to 24 votes. But it's going to take a lot. You have to convince 8 owners right now to change their mind. That's tough to do. So, King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what up, Lou? What's up, King of the Bluegrass? Hope everything is well. Likewise. I think Washington should trade back at least twice to accumulate picks in the middle of the draft. What says you? That's the goal. But as Adam Peters said, and as I've said a million times, and as you've heard a million times, this isn't a one-way street. You want to trade back, you need somebody that wants to come up. So we could want to trade back all we want, but if there's no team that is dying to come up, there isn't a player there that they covet at that position that they feel like they need to come up to get him, you can want to trade back all you want, but you're stuck. So I've said this already. I expect Adam Peters to trade back at least once, possibly twice. I think they're going to come away with 7 picks. And, you know, the earlier you trade back, the more picks you accumulate, the less you have to trade back to get to 7. Right now we have 5. You could, theoretically speaking, trade back once and pick up 2 additional picks. And boom, you got your 7. And now you don't have to trade back anymore. But as I've said, the further back you wait to trade back, the less you're going to get for your pick, the less value your pick has. So 29 would be ideal to move out of, but I think they're going to be stuck at 29. 61 is the one that I think they're going to have a chance to move out of, because that's when the value, I think, becomes its greatest. But we'll see what happens. But yes, theoretically speaking, trading back is the move, but can you get that done is the question. Don't know. We'll see, though. All right. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Okay, that's where we left off at. HTTR Carson says, Lou always uses the Jags and Titans to make a point. You know why I do that, right? Because they're 2 of the worst watches in the NFL. I've told you this already. I told you the story of why every playoff, the AFC South is always the 4:30 game on Saturday to kick off the playoffs, because it's the lowest rated division in football. All right, it's the lowest rated division in football. So to kick off the playoffs, they always want to put their weakest product out there. That's why it's always the AFC South, right? And come on, let's be honest. How many times have you sat down, start to finish, and watched the Tennessee Titans game? I'll wait. Like, they're the sleepiest team in the league. At least Jacksonville, every now and again, are half decent. And if Trevor Lawrence is playing, you're like, all right, I'll watch this. But if it's Tennessee, yeah, I mean, even when they had Ryan Tannehill, you would still sleep, bro. That's why I always use Tennessee or Jacksonville. Because unless you're a fan of those teams, it's not a great watch. Normally, it's not a great watch. But I digress. You got me, though. Hands up. You got me, HTTR Carson. I always use those two teams in particular. Always. You got me. Hands up. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, if Jackson Dart is at 29, somebody that didn't get a quarterback in the first few picks is going to come up and get him. Very nice haul, possibly. That is not, I don't think, accurate. Now, I've said this before, and we've seen this happen. Teddy Bridgewater in 2014, Lamar Jackson in 2017. We've seen the draft, or excuse me, 2018. We've seen the drafts where teams decided we want the 5th-year option on the quarterback. So we need to come back into the end of the first round to get him, right? But if I'm going to do that, I don't need to do it at 29. I don't need to do it at 30 or 31. I'll do it at 32. You don't think the Eagles are going to, like, we know that's their MO. The Eagles are always looking to trade out, always looking to trade back, always looking to pick up future draft picks. Do you know how many picks the Eagles have over the next 3 years in the draft? It's insane how many picks they have, right? So you think for 1 second Howie Roseman isn't sitting there licking his chops at the prospects of some team wanting to come up and get Jackson Dart. Of course he is. And if I'm a team looking to get Jackson Dart in the first round, why would I do it at 29 when I can do it at 32? It'll cost me a lot less, right? You see where I'm going with this? Again, Teddy Bridgewater was the 32nd pick in the draft. Lamar Jackson was the 32nd pick in the draft. If a team's coming up for a quarterback, it usually isn't 29, it's not 30, it's not 31. It's usually 32 because it costs a lot less to come up to 32 than it does to 29 or 28 or 20 or 27 or 30, right? You wait until the last possible pick in the first round because it's going to cost you a lot less, right? And unless you've got multiple teams fighting over Jackson Dart, highly unlikely that somebody's not just going to wait for him to fall in the second round, like we saw with Will Levis, or wait till 32 overall and then trade. I just don't see Jackson Dart being a reason somebody comes up. It's going to have to be some player that a team had a top 20 grade on and he keeps falling, and they say, all right, we got to be the team that stops his slide. It's not Jackson Dart, I don't think. Again, theoretically speaking, you would love to use the Jackson Dart angle, but I just don't see that because if history repeats itself, and history has shown us that if you're going to trade back into the first round for a quarterback at the back end of the first round, it's usually the 32nd pick. So we'll see what happens. We'll take one more comment, I think, and then we'll get out of here. Let's see. See if there's any more comments. Pneumonia. Okay, he died from pneumonia. Wow. Pneumonia? I mean, I guess as you get older, that kind of stuff can take you. I'm not saying you can't die from pneumonia at 11 years old, but just feels like something you shouldn't, like it shouldn't even get to pneumonia. You know? Ah, man, that sucks. But you know what? I just seen somebody say something about throat cancer and he had chemo. That stuff, makes you more susceptible and your body weaker when you're trying to fight off something like pneumonia. So if that is in fact the case, then yeah. Anyway, I digress. Yikes. Okay, so nothing else is here for me. Let's transition to our final topic of today's show. And of course, in order to do that, we got to go to garbage time. So we've talked about this, and I see y'all talking about Tennessee. I told y'all, look, I did not tell a lie. All right. And somebody said, I ain't watched Tennessee since Steve McNair was at quarterback. Shit. We talking 20 years ago, right? So again, I ain't say anything not true, right? Last time Steve McNair played for the Titans had to be what, 2012, maybe 2011. Sheesh, right? Maybe 2009, 2010. Anyway, Hard Knocks. So we've learned a little bit more. We've seen some of these changes that are taking place. We talked about a lot of them yesterday on the show, last night on the show. And Hard Knocks is something else that has changed, right? So let's get to Hard Knocks now and what has changed with Hard Knocks. So I need to also mention this. So we know they're not going to do the off-season Hard Knocks again. Nobody's signing up for that shit. It was for the consumer, this shit was gold, right? Platinum even. But for the team, the Giants, it couldn't have went any more disastrous than it did. And thus, nobody else is touching that off-season Hard Knocks with the 10-foot pole. No one's trying to show what their intentions are in the draft. No one wants their owner talking about what is going to keep them up at night if it happens, because everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Giants based off of their Hard Knocks, right? They wanted Jaden Daniels. They couldn't get him. And the GM's son, Joe Shane, said, trade up for Jaden Daniels, right? And then Jaden Daniels goes out and has the greatest rookie season we've ever seen from a quarterback in NFL history. Their owner says, if Saquon goes to the Eagles, I won't be able to sleep at night, right? And then Saquon not only goes to the Eagles, but has one of the greatest running back seasons we've ever seen from a free agent departing and going to another team in NFL history. He even does a commercial based off of a sleeping agent, based off of the Hard Knocks clip of him saying that he wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So there were so many jokes, memes, and gifts that came from that series that no team wants to touch that. So that's dead. We knew that once we saw the Giants thing go the way that it went. Okay, no team signing up for that shit. But the in-season divisional Hard Knocks was awesome, right? Way better than just doing an individual team. And it went so well that the NFL says, hey, we forcing y'all to do this shit now. Y'all have no choice. So every division is going to be featured on the in-season Hard Knocks division setup. Every 8 years, your division is going to be on Hard Knocks in season. So the AFC North kicked it off. They won't be back on it until 2032. Okay, they've done their service. They're out of the game for 8 years. Don't know who's going to be next this year, but it's going to be another whole division. My guess is you just did the AFC North. Why not do the NFC North and just kind of keep it in line, right? If you're going to do the AFC East, do the NFC East. If you're going to do the AFC South, do the NFC South. That's how I would do it, but we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do. But we're getting another one of those this upcoming season. We'll see what division that they choose to follow. But that's important to know because now we have a new list of parameters for Hard Knocks as to how you can be omitted from having to participate. Okay, there used to be these stipulations, and it kept the pool nice and tight. It didn't cast a wide net, because if you made the playoffs in one of the last 2 years, which we know this is a league where parity exists, and you would have either you're good and you've made the playoffs once in the last 2 years, either you're good or you suck ass and you got a new coach. Because as we know, every year 8 new coaches come in the league, just about. So right off of the strength of that, let's say, because there are 14 teams that make the playoffs every year, that's 14 teams right there that don't have to be on Hard Knocks. Then let's say usually 2 teams in each conference make it that didn't make it the year before. So add in another 4 to the 14 that were already able to say, nah, I'm good on Hard Knocks. That's 18 teams, plus the 8 teams that have new coaches. That right there would put you at 26 teams that can say, nah, I'm good on Hard Knocks. Then if you factor in the teams that raise their hand and say, hey, I'll do it, like Dallas, they say, hey, you ain't got to do it if you've been on Hard Knocks within the last decade. So that would take the number down to like 27, 28, right? So it would leave you with about 4 teams that could actually do Hard Knocks. It's not a great pool to pick from. Now, they were fortunate last year that the Bears were one of those teams, and they had Caleb Williams, and so people were dying to see, all of the new faces that they had brought in, and Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick. So it made it easy last year. But it would have been tough, right? It would have been tough. Commanders had a new coach, so they were able to say, nah, we're good. So now the NFL is like, all right, y'all trying to not do Hard Knocks. And that's a staple of what we do now. Because if we want to keep our dominance over, the sports landscape, even when we're not playing games, we need Hard Knocks. So y'all gonna do this goddamn Hard Knocks. So now they've loosened the rules. They've relaxed the rules on what precludes you from having to be on Hard Knocks. So let's look at this. So my guy Ari, as I've talked about, who's plugged in, he tweeted this out just a few hours ago. He said, Hard Knocks has loosened its rules on which teams can be forced into training camp edition. The new rules for who can't be forced to participate goes as follows. Teams with a first-year head coach, so that still exists, right? And I think that's the right thing to do. If a guy's coming in, he's got a ton on his plate already, the last thing he needs is a bunch of cameras there being a distraction as he's trying to implement whatever culture he's trying to, set in that building, right? So that should be the case. Teams that were featured in the in-season edition covering a full division. So the Steelers, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Bengals can't be forced on the Hard Knocks. They were just on it this past year. So they're good, right? So that's 4 teams right there. And then how many teams did we have get new coaches this offseason? 7, I believe it was. Let's see if we can rattle them off. Dallas has a new coach. Vegas has a new coach. New England has a new coach. Jacksonville has a new coach. The Jets have a new coach. The Saints have a new coach. The Bears have a new coach. I think that's it. That's 7, right? Catch me if I miss somebody, but that's 7. You add the 4 to the 7, that's 11 teams that can say, nah, I'm good on Hard Knocks. And then the last stipulation is teams on Hard Knock training camp the last 8 seasons, okay? So it used to be 10. Now they've limited that to 8. And I can't tell you who's been on Hard Knocks the last 8 years, but I know Dallas is up there, but they were already off the list because of having a new head coach. So they're overlapping there. So you're still at 11. The Bears were just up there last year, so we can go ahead and say the Bears, right? So that's 12 teams. Bears have a new head coach though, so they wouldn't have mattered. It didn't matter. They overlap anyway, so it's still at 11. I want to say the Bucks were up there with Jameis Winston one year over the last 8 years. So I know that for a fact. So the Bucks would be added into the mix, 12. The Lions did it a couple years ago. So that would make it 13 teams. That's all I can remember was the Cowboys, the Lions, the Bears. The Lions did it before the Bears. I think the Cowboys did it before them because that was the year Dak was coming back, I believe, from the injury. So I think that was actually 2021 because he got injured in 2020, and I think they did it in 2021. Who did it in 2022? Not sure. Anyway, feel like the Jets were in there. I'm pretty sure the Jets were in there somewhere, right? They did it with Aaron Rodgers. Matter of fact, that was the 2022 team because I think the 2020 or 2023 team was the Jets. The Lions were 2022, and the Cowboys were 2021, and I think the Bucks were 2020, and I think the Chiefs were in there in like 2019, 2018. Nope, I think theirs might have been with Alex Smith. It might be a little bit further back. Anyway, I said all of that to say this. The number is probably somewhere around 16, 17 teams, 15, 16, 17 teams that are now able to say, I'm good on Hard Knocks. But just about half the league is now available to be on the show. So it changes a lot, right? That whole, if you made the playoffs in the last 2 years, that was the one that was able to eliminate a ton of teams. That shit's gone now. So we're going to see some teams on Hard Knocks who probably didn't want to be on the shit in the first place, but now they don't have a choice. So it's going to be interesting. Layla, you may not want to be on Hard Knocks, but after what Jaden Daniels did last year, I could see the NFL come knocking. Hey, Washington, what's going on? It's HBO with Hard Knocks. How you doing? Yeah. Oh man, you guys were a great story last year. Man, Jaden Daniels, man. What an entrance to the league, right? Yeah, I mean, that was amazing. So yeah, about that. We'd like to follow you guys this summer. Want you guys to be on Hard Knocks. So here's the thing, you better hope somebody says, "We'll do it. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." I don't see any teams volunteering to do this shit. So they're going to pick somebody. I wouldn't be shocked if it's us. Be prepared. Be prepared. Because guess what? You can't say no if they choose you, right? You don't have a choice. The league would prefer someone volunteer. Like the Lions volunteered, the Cowboys volunteered, right? The years that those two teams did it. The Jets did not volunteer. They did not want to do it the year Aaron Rodgers came on board. They were forced to do it. The Bears did not want to do it last year. They were forced to do it, which is why they changed the rules, because they were having to force teams and they were having to pick from a very limited pool. Now with this expanded, right, opportunity, you may get a team that didn't have to do it to say, you know what, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. I'll take it off your hands this year. But in the event that they don't, you have more to choose from. I mean, just think about it. A couple of years ago, it was Washington, the Saints, the Bears, and like one other in the Jets. That was the team like, and this was with Sam Howell at quarterback, with Ronald Rivera. Who wanted to see that shit? And obviously the NFL was like, yeah, we'll take Aaron Rodgers for $200, please. Luckily, he was going to the Jets, so it made that an attractive destination. But could you imagine if it was the Saints or the Commanders that year that had to do it? Or even the Bears with Justin Fields? Yuck. So, yeah, trust me. The NFL was like, yeah, no, we can't have this shit. So, I digress. Anyway, that, my friends, is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 494th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I appreciate y'all for kicking it with the kid. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Y'all may get it back again. I might do it again tomorrow. All bets are off. I still haven't talked Final Four yet. Still want to do that. So we'll see what happens. But for you Commanders fans, I will be live tonight for the Command Post Live. So hopefully you'll be able to join me a little bit later on this evening. But for the rest of you, I will see you guys next time here on the Louie T Network podcast. I appreciate y'all for kicking it with the kid on this Thursday afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you're consuming this. Really, truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. See you next time. Peace.